Hello, and welcome to this short video on vocation and purpose. This is part of our Caring for Yourself series of short videos. A quick hello from us. We are from Team Boo, and what we do at Boo is we support organisations to be the happiest and healthiest they can be. And we do this through three main areas, through coaching, leadership, and well-being. The video today is all around how can we understand what our values are, how can we connect to them, and how can we live by them a little bit more in our everyday lives. That will have an impact on our well-being, and so this falls under our well-being area. When we are thinking about caring for ourselves and our own well-being, a really good place to start is with our well-being grid. We can often not realise how we are, and the wellbeing grid gives us a bit of a framework to understand how we're doing. Now, when we are in a space where we've got high and positive energy, this is called our performance space. We're all different, so we'll all experience this slightly differently. But some of the common things that we have here is that we're quite focused, we're quite connected, we are quite efficient with our time, we get into a state of flow with our work, we often feel quite confident, we feel quite competent, we're able to do things really easily. All of those challenges that come along when we're in our performance space, we find solutions, we find it a lot easier to come up with ways around doing things. We're a lot more social in this space, we're a lot more connected with others, and we'll often be a bit more fun in this space and enjoy things. And what often happens when we're thinking about our connection to our values is that when we're in our performance space, we're more likely to be using those values that are important to us. When we are in a space where we've still got high energy, but we're maybe feeling a little bit more negative, this is called our stress space. So when we're in our stress space, we may experience things like feeling overwhelmed or feeling pressured or feeling like things are getting on top of us. I often notice that I can't really see the wood through the trees when I'm in this space. There's too many things going on and I find it difficult to focus. It might be that we end up losing a lot of time in this space because we start things but never really get them done. It can be quite a tricky space, and often if we aren't achieving or getting things done like we do normally, we can hear from our inner critic a little bit more. So our inner critic might tell us we're not getting things done or we're not able to get things done. We can feel stress as well. So when we are experiencing stress, there's a hormone called cortisol that will rise in our system. And when this happens, we are likely to feel physical effects of stress. So we might get tension headaches. We might feel our heart racing a lot quicker. We might notice that our tummy gives us a lot of tummy aches. We might have tense feelings across our bodies, and it can feel quite tricky. We might notice that we're a little bit spiky in this space, so we're maybe not as patient or maybe not as kind as we usually want to be, and maybe we'll make assumptions about what other people are thinking. We might find it difficult to make decisions, and all of those problems or challenges that come up in everyday life, it will be really tricky to get through these. When it comes to thinking about our values and connecting with what's important to us, it might be that the things that are important to us we've not been able to connect to, and that's why we're feeling stressed. If we're in this space for too long, we might experience what we call burnout, where we have negative and low energy. We'll need some support in this space, whether that's through medication, whether it's through talking therapies, but it absolutely will be through what we call renewal. There are loads of different types of renewal, and please watch our Properly Selfish video to learn a little bit more about this. But today we're going to be focusing on values and purpose. So how can we get a little bit of renewal using those? Once we've identified what our values are and why they're important to us, The more that we can work within our values, the more likely we are going to be in that performance space. When we are feeling challenged in our values, we're likely to be in that stress and burnout space. So we're going to spend some time today thinking about how we can identify our values and how we can work towards using them in our everyday life. So, when we're thinking about our vocation and purpose, I'd like to begin by introducing you to ikigai. And this is a Japanese concept meaning a reason for being. It's all about finding your value and your purpose in life, looking at how all of the small joys can contribute to a more balanced and happier lifestyle. What I really love about this is that it brings together all the different areas in our life that contribute to our ikigai, which is in the middle, and our reason for being. This was actually put together after they did a lot of research around what they call the blue zone. Now, the blue zone, there are areas across the world where people are living the longest and reporting the happiest and most satisfied lives. One of the key examples that they found from this research was in Japan, where they looked at a Japanese fisherman who had got one of the longest spans of life and also one of the reported happiness areas of life. And the reason for this was because they were having their ikigai lived out in their world. And what that means is we're making this up of 4 components. So firstly, doing what you love. So something that you love doing, when you feel good when you're doing it, and you tend to get into that flow state because you don't really think about the fact that you're doing it because you love it so much. The Japanese fishermen loved fishing, loved finding out different ways of doing it, and found peace whilst doing it. The next section is about what the world needs. So humans are social beings, and so when we're doing a role that helps our communities to thrive, and when we know we are needed by others, it helps us to feel useful, important, and full of purpose. If we're thinking about that Japanese fisherman, they absolutely did what the world needed because we needed to eat. What we can be paid for. Sometimes this can be the trickiest one because we need to be paid to live. We need to be able to meet those basic needs. And again, if we're thinking of the Japanese fishermen, they were able to be paid for the fish that they found. Finally, the last section is all about what we are good at. It might be something that we have grown a talent for over the years. Maybe we've practiced, maybe we've learned different ways of doing it. And we get satisfaction when we are good at something. So again, if we're thinking about the Japanese fishermen, they might have tried lots of different practices and found a way that they're really good at doing that. It's only when we can bring all of these elements together that we find that reason for being. You can also see here where some of those areas overlap as well. So when we're doing something that we love and the world needs, that might be our mission. When the world needs it and we're paid for it, that might be our vocation. When we're paid for it and we're good at it, that might be our profession. And when we love doing it and we're good at it, that's our passion. And we can also see the areas where we might be missing some of this overlap and what that might make us feel like. I really love looking at this as a concept of thinking about what is important for us, because it helps us to think about where am I in my life, what are the kind of things that I'm doing, and what areas might be missing so that I can find ways to bring happiness around those areas. So alongside our ikigai, we can also try and uncover what our values are. Now, values, they're a set of personal things that are really important to us. They will be the types of things that if we are using them, we will often feel in our performance space because we feel great when we use our values. If our values are challenged, we are likely to be triggered into that stress space. We might feel really frustrated. And these values are defined by our experiences in life. It will be defined by how we grew up, the types of situations we grew up in, the types of scenarios we were in, but they will be completely personal to us. around how we feel about things in life. You can see on the screen at the moment a couple of examples of what values may be. Might be things like compassion, autonomy, fairness, order, maybe. But it's really useful to know what your values are so that you can start bringing them into your life more often. A way to discover what your values might be is to get a values list. You can find these online really easily if you just search for a values list and go through those lists and try to narrow down around about 8 things that really spark your attention, that really stand out to you. You can also use our values cards, which are available on our website, to help you to work by yourself or to work with others to try and understand what your values are. Once you've found out what your values are, there are some really lovely questions that you can ask yourself here. So how do you feel about your selection? How does it affect your plans? How do you want to change? Where do you want to go from here? What is the impact of your values? Where are they shining and how does it feel when they aren't aligned? You may also want to focus on which values you hold dear. Where do you see them shining through and how does it feel when they are challenged? This will help you to identify the types of situations where you might need some extra support if your values are challenged, or the types of situation where you will thrive where your values are being used. So a quick reminder of what we've been through. Use a values list and reflect on what is important to you. Try out some values cards with a friend or a colleague. Notice when they're shining through and notice when they are challenged. Maybe even use a journal to do this, but finally be kind to yourself. As always, just a quick helpful resource if you're trying to think about how can I bring some well-being into my everyday. Action for Happiness do these lovely calendars where they'll give you a small prompt of something to think about each day. As well as this, there are also some resources. So the Hub of Hope app gives you guidance and support services that are local to you. And there's also Calm and Headspace to do some guided meditation, guided breathing, or guided mindfulness. Finally, we'd like to encourage you to do one small thing to help prioritize your well-being today. Maybe it will be trying to identify your values through a values list. Thank you so much for watching this video. All of our social media handles are on the screen at the moment. We'd love you to follow along, be our friends, and tell us how you got on about learning about your values.